Have you ever wondered why you ended up marrying that one person out of millions of people in this world? Not someone else, not a stranger, but that one person, the one you loved, the one you fought with, the one who held your heart, and maybe the one who hurt it the most. Was it just fate? Or could there be something deeper at play? Now think about this for a second. Why do some couples just click as if they were made for each other? They get along easily, understand one another without saying much. And yet there are couples who constantly argue, misunderstand each other, and always seem out of sync even though the love is still there. Is love simply a gamble? Or is there an invisible force shaping our relationships? Here's the part that makes many people pause. According to Buddhist teachings, marriage isn't just a connection between two people, it's part of a karmic and spiritual journey. The person you're living with today might have been someone you deeply loved or deeply hurt in a past life. And each time we meet someone who touches us deeply, it's rarely random. It's often a chance to heal or to settle an unfinished karmic debt. If you've ever felt like you married the wrong person, or wondered why your marriage feels so hard sometimes, maybe it's time to look inward instead of outward. In today's video, we're going to explore how karma and merit shape the person you choose, or the one you're spiritually led to choose as your life partner. We'll walk together through the nature of karmic bonds, shared lessons, and how to turn relationships into paths of healing and awakening. Let's begin. 1. Marriage as a mirror of the inner self. There are times when someone looks at their partner and quietly wonders, why has he changed? Why isn't she the same person anymore? Or deeper still, why does this marriage make me feel so drained, so alone, so wounded? These aren't rare questions. They're the silent sighs of so many. From a middle-aged woman sitting alone in a California cafe, to a retired man in Texas, quietly picking up the pieces after a divorce that followed 30 years of marriage. Here's something strange about marriage. We often enter it because of love, but we stay to learn about ourselves. A life partner, if we're willing to look deeply, isn't just someone walking beside us. They're often a mirror reflecting back the parts of ourselves we haven't fully seen. When we feel angry, hurt, abandoned, yes, maybe the other person did something wrong, but also maybe they're triggering something buried inside, something that's been waiting to be healed. It might be an old childhood wound, a memory of parents fighting, a belief that says, I'm not good enough, or a fear that whispers, I'll never be truly loved. And so, every time your partner grows silent, snaps in frustration, or pulls away, those old feelings come rushing back, intense and raw, as if it just happened yesterday. In the teachings of the Buddha, one lesson is repeated again and again. Return to yourself. Whether through meditation, mindfulness, or relationship struggles, the Dharma reminds us, what causes suffering outside is often a door back inside. There was a woman once who came to see an elderly monk in a quiet monastery in India. She cried as she spoke about her husband, cold, distant, emotionally absent. She said, I've done everything to change him. I've been patient, sacrificed, stayed gentle, and still, nothing. I feel so alone in this marriage. The monk sat in silence, then gently replied, You didn't come here to change someone else. You came here to see yourself more clearly. That sentence shattered her expectations like glass. Marriage, he reminded her, isn't about fixing the other person. It's about discovering the broken pieces within ourselves. Sometimes, it's not your partner who needs to change. It's your own heart that's asking to be seen, held, and healed. Of course, that's not to deny the pain. Not every hurt in marriage is your fault. There are real wounds, betrayal, neglect, disrespect. But if all we ever do is blame, we stay trapped in the same cycle. The shift begins when we turn inward and ask, what unhealed part of me is so sensitive to this? When did I stop honoring my own voice? Am I expecting my partner to fill the gaps I've never been willing to face? And in that moment, a new door opens. Not to change the other person, but to finally begin healing ourselves. There was once an older Buddhist practitioner in New York who shared her story. She had gone through 2 marriages in her lifetime. One ended quietly. The other ended in tears. But strangely enough, it was that second marriage, the one filled with arguments, pain, and misunderstandings, where she learned how to truly love herself, where she learned to set healthy boundaries, where she learned to forgive. She told me, I used to think I was unlucky to have met him, but now I know he came into my life to teach me something no one else could, how to stop abandoning myself. And maybe that's exactly what the Buddhist teachings are trying to show us. Sometimes, the person who hurts us the most is the one helping us see the wound we've been carrying inside. The one who makes us angry might actually be holding up the clearest mirror to the parts of ourselves that still resist, that still crave, that still cling. No one enters our life by accident, and no pain is ever meaningless. So if you're in a difficult marriage right now, don't rush to label it a mistake. Maybe, just maybe, it's a classroom. Not just for learning about your partner, but for listening to your own heart. Because sometimes, when we feel the most alone, life is gently inviting us to come home to ourselves. And if you've reached the end of your rope, if the pain has gone too deep and there's no more road left to walk together, then please remember this. Letting go isn't failure. Letting go can be liberation when you've already learned the lesson you were meant to learn. The Buddha once said, when you release something with compassion, it becomes freedom, not loss. Because in the end, marriage is never just a relationship between 2 people. It's a spiritual path, one where both individuals have the chance to grow, to transform, and to return to their truest selves. 2. The blessing and secret of harmonious relationships. Sometimes you meet a couple, and there's something quiet and beautiful about them. They're not flashy, they're not loud, but the way they look at each other, there's a gentle understanding behind the eyes. They don't need to raise their voices. They don't need to win every argument. There's simply a calm presence, 2 people who choose to be there for one another. Relationships like this don't seem to require effort. Love, in these cases, isn't a battle to win, it's a garden to tend. You plant, you water, and nature does the rest. Some people call this compatibility. Others call it luck or meeting the right person. But in the light of Buddhist teachings, there's another name for it: blessing. Blessings aren't rewards handed down from the heavens. They're the natural fruits of meaningful, kind actions rooted in sincere intention either from this life or from lifetimes long ago. A great teacher once said, when 2 people carry similar blessings, they will meet again in the great river of rebirth, not to begin something new, but to continue something beautiful left unfinished. And in years of teaching Dharma to thousands of practitioners across the US, I've noticed something about couples who live in harmony. They don't always have similar personalities. One may be calm, one may be fiery, one may be deep, one may be lighthearted, but they share the same frequency of goodness. And between them, you'll always find the quiet presence of precious qualities: patience, kindness, gratitude, and an unselfish spirit. These blessings didn't just appear one day. They were cultivated, not just for each other, but for countless beings before. They practiced compassion. They forgave. They loved unconditionally. And they kept their hearts clean, even when the world got messy. And so, When two people with those kinds of blessings meet, something magical happens. Love blossoms naturally, without chasing, without forcing. There's a beautiful image in Buddhist scriptures. Blessings are like a cool breeze. You can't see it, but when it's there, the whole space feels lighter. Anyone who steps into it feels peace. In a relationship, that breeze is the blessing. You can't measure it with compliments or expensive gifts or how much someone loves you. But when it's there, you just feel it. As if you're walking the same path, side by side, without needing to pull each other forward. There's a small story from a spring retreat in Northern California. An elderly couple in their 60s would walk hand in hand to the meditation hall each morning. They didn't say much. They just sat silently together. After meditation, the husband would gently place his wife's sandals by her feet. She'd smile and bow to the teacher. Someone once asked them the secret to their happiness. They didn't talk about love. They didn't give any tips. They just said, "We don't try to change each other. We each try to live kindly with ourselves. And then love just grows." That's what blessings feel like. Quiet, but powerful. But here's something important to understand. Blessings are not always equal between two people. Sometimes one person shines with light, while the other is still struggling in the dark. One may be generous and patient, the other quick-tempered and selfish. And while love may still exist, there will be friction. There will be exhaustion, like two people paddling in opposite directions without realizing it. This doesn't mean the relationship is doomed, but if one person doesn't nurture their own blessings, the other ends up carrying the whole weight of the relationship, and over time, love can wither. So instead of waiting for your partner to change, maybe what matters more is this. Practice together. Grow your blessings together. Not with grand gestures, just with small daily acts of love. A word of kindness in the morning. A soft good night before bed. An honest conversation. A quiet shoulder when it's needed most. The Buddha taught, each small action leaves a mark on your consciousness. When the mind becomes pure, your relationships will naturally reflect that purity. In other words, you don't need to change the whole world. Just change yourself and the world around you will follow. If today you're in a peaceful relationship, treasure it. It's the fruit of many lifetimes of goodness. If your relationship is filled with conflict, don't rush to blame. Maybe one or both of you need to rebuild the blessings that have faded. And if you're currently walking alone, don't assume you're lacking. Maybe life is offering you the most sacred opportunity of all, to build your own inner garden so that when the right person comes, love will bloom effortlessly. 3. Marriage. A unique kind of retreat in everyday life. One of the most common myths about love is the idea that I'm looking for my other half. It sounds romantic, doesn't it? But from a Buddhist perspective, that belief often hides a deeper loneliness, as if we're somehow incomplete, waiting for someone else to fill the gap. But when we start looking at life through the lens of mindfulness, something shifts. We realize marriage isn't about completing each other. It's about helping one another see that we were never incomplete to begin with. And it's through that journey of love, conflict, hurt, and forgiveness that a spiritual doorway begins to open. I remember once, during a talk with couples at a meditation center in Seattle, someone asked, "What should I do when my partner isn't who I expected? I feel like I either have to change them or I have to change myself too much just to keep going." And the answer wasn't about who's right or wrong. It was this: can you see this relationship as a spiritual retreat? Because in marriage, living together each day doesn't just mean facing the other person. It means facing the ego within yourself. The ego that wants to be right. The ego that wants to be loved a very specific way. The ego that resists criticism, fears being ignored, or dreads getting hurt. And what happens when two strong egos live under the same roof? Friction, misunderstanding, silence, sometimes cold distance. But through the eyes of practice, every one of those moments becomes an invitation to practice compassion, patience, and letting go. In that light, marriage stops being a romantic dream. It becomes a silent temple, a place where we train every single day, from learning to listen without reacting, to apologizing without defending ourselves, from letting go of control, to accepting the person in front of us, even when they don't match the image we once had in our minds. In a short sutra, the Buddha said, "If someone causes you suffering, see them as a bodhisattva here to help you practice loving kindness." It may sound far-fetched, but it's deeply true. Your partner with all the traits that challenge you might just be your most powerful teacher in compassion and patience. When you love someone, but they don't love you back the way you hoped. When you want closeness, and they pull away. When you long to be understood, but your words go unheard. In those moments, a true practitioner doesn't turn away in resentment. They don't explode in blame. And they don't curse life for being unfair. Instead, they pause, they take a deep breath, and they ask, "What am I clinging to? What part of my ego is feeling hurt right now?" And in that very moment, a door opens toward awakening. I remember a woman in her 50s during a retreat in Vermont. She said, "I've never been to a monastery. I've never lived in the forest like the monks. But living with my husband for 30 years, that's been my spiritual practice." She said it with a soft smile, not bitter, not proud, just a quiet acceptance that love isn't always smooth, but it's always an invitation to grow from within. Now, some might ask, what about single people? If they don't have anyone to reflect them, can they still be on the path? The answer is yes. But marriage is a very specific kind of retreat because it doesn't let you run. You can't storm off to meditate and pretend life doesn't exist. You can't stay silent forever when there are kids, work, and responsibilities. You have to stay right there, in the messy kitchen, in the crying of children, in the tired eyes of your partner, and still keep your mindfulness, speak gently, and not give up. That is practice. Practice in the real world. Practice in every breath. In the light of the Dharma, marriage is not a reward. It's not a destination of happiness. It's a living spiritual path where each day you are invited to become a better version of yourself. Not some grand enlightened being, just a person who's a little more patient than yesterday, a little kinder, a little more able to listen, a little less attached to getting everything your way. That's the real path, grounded, ordinary, and deeply human. So if you're in a difficult relationship right now, please don't rush to call it a failure. Instead, ask yourself, what is this relationship trying to teach me? And if you can learn that lesson, even if the other person never changes, you've already succeeded on your path. 4. When marriage is unhappy, a Buddhist perspective. Some marriages were never easy to begin with. The love might still be there. The memories might still linger. But living together, day after day, feels like a quiet war. One person keeps trying. The other pulls away. One speaks. The other doesn't listen. And that feeling of being alone inside a relationship can sometimes feel even lonelier than actually being alone. And when that goes on long enough, the questions start to creep in. Did I marry the wrong person? Why does everyone else's marriage look so peaceful, while mine feels like a constant heartbreak? But in the light of Buddhist teachings, there's another way to look at it, a softer, deeper way. Not every marriage comes to make us happy. Some come to help us grow. And from that perspective, there are three key spiritual reasons why many marriages feel difficult even when the two people once deeply loved each other. 1. Unresolved karmic debts. Have you ever felt stuck in a relationship where your mind wants to walk away, but your heart keeps pulling you back? Maybe it's not just about emotions. Maybe it's a karmic thread from the past asking to be untangled. Buddhism teaches that those who enter our lives, especially in deep relationships like marriage, are never random. They might have been your parent, child, lover, or even someone who hurt you, or someone you hurt in a past life. And now, in this life, they've come back, not to get revenge, but to help close a karmic loop that's still open. A Buddhist once shared this: "My husband has brought me more pain than anyone else in my life, but at the same time, I feel a responsibility to stay, as if I'm here to complete something I couldn't finish before, even though I can't name it." It sounds vague, but it's real. That strange sense of familiarity when you first meet. That intense attachment mixed with conflict. These are often signs of unresolved karmic ties. And because it's karma, it can't be solved with anger, blame, or escape. Only mindfulness, compassion, and the courage to face yourself can transform that karma into liberation. 2. Lack of spiritual merit. Love might begin with feelings, but staying in love, that requires merit. Think of a tree. Feelings are the seed, but merit, spiritual merit, is the soil, the water, the sunlight. Without it, the tree withers, and love is the same. Some people long deeply to be loved, but keep attracting relationships full of pain. Why? Maybe in the past, they caused pain that hasn't yet been healed. Maybe they never truly learned to love themselves. So their energy draws others who are also emotionally broken. Merit isn't something magical. It's the natural result of how we've lived, whether in past lives or just this one. When we live with honesty, generosity, kindness, gratitude, that merit accumulates. But when we live selfishly, hold on to resentment, or close our hearts, we lose the chance to build healthy, nourishing relationships. The Buddha once said, "A person with a kind heart will naturally encounter kind things." And sometimes that kind thing is simply a gentle, loving companion who doesn't need you to change to feel seen. 3. Spiritual lessons we must learn through challenge. Some people don't come to love us. They come to teach us how to love the right way. Some relationships don't come to bring joy. They come to help us grow. At a retreat in New Mexico, a woman in her 40s once said, "My first husband was emotionally distant. I used to think it was his fault. But over time, I realized, because of him, I finally learned to love myself without needing someone else's permission." That kind of relationship, it might seem like the wrong person, but it could be the right lesson. After all, how would we ever learn patience, forgiveness, or healthy boundaries if we only lived in relationships that were always easy? Sometimes the one who wounds us is the very person who helps us see our deepest inner wounds and begins our journey toward healing. Now, Buddhism never encourages people to stay in toxic or abusive relationships, but it does gently remind us, whenever suffering arises in a relationship, pause and ask, what lesson am I being invited to learn right now? And if you can learn it, then maybe you'll be able to walk away with gratitude, not bitterness, not regret. And if not, well, life might bring the lesson again, just in a different form, through a different teacher. Because sometimes the most painful things are the very ones that wake us up. So when a marriage stops being a place of peace, look deeply into these 3 things. Is there a karmic debt trying to resolve itself? Is the spiritual merit there enough to sustain love? And what lesson is this challenge trying to teach you? The answers may not come from the mind, but they often arise quietly, gently, from the silence of the heart. 5. Why do people who once loved each other hurt each other so deeply? That's a question many people have quietly asked themselves. In the middle of the night, when the house is silent, but the heart is still echoing with things left unsaid, how could he become so cold? Why isn't she the same gentle person she used to be? Why do we keep having the same fight over and over again? When we're in love, we believe love is enough. But once we live together, we begin to realize something. Love alone isn't enough to overcome karma. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a profound and compassionate view on the challenges that come with relationships. He taught, there are no random encounters. The people who come into our lives, especially those we love deeply, are often souls we've been connected with for many lifetimes. They might have once been someone we deeply loved, or someone we abandoned, betrayed, or hurt. And when those karmic debts haven't been resolved, life brings us back to meet that very same person in a different body, a different situation, so that we can finally complete the unfinished lesson. A middle-aged woman once shared during a Dharma talk on the West Coast, "I love my husband, but sometimes he's the one who hurts me the most. And the strange thing is, I can't leave. I feel like there's something deeper connecting us. Not obligation, not the kids, but something spiritual, like a karmic debt." That feeling? It's not uncommon. Many people, even after being deeply hurt, can't seem to walk away. Because somewhere deep down, a part of their soul knows this isn't over yet. Every time the same argument resurfaces, even over the smallest thing, it feels like stepping into an old cycle, saying the same words, getting mad about the same things, regretting it, repeating it. That's the sign of an unfinished lesson. Karma isn't a curse. It's not a punishment. It's simply the echo of past words, actions, and emotions that haven't yet been fully understood or healed. And when those imprints remain in our consciousness, they return not to punish us, but to give us the chance to do it better, with more awareness, with more compassion. Like a student who fails an important exam. They don't retake it because the teacher is cruel, but because the lesson is too essential to skip. Maybe in the past, one person abandoned the other, or betrayed them, or took them for granted. And now, in this life, they've returned, and this time they're the one being abandoned, betrayed, or forgotten. This isn't karmic revenge. It's a profound invitation to awaken, to know what it feels like to be hurt, to learn to never inflict that pain on someone else again, and to live with deeper compassion. Sometimes, both people have hurt each other before, and this life isn't about repeating that cycle, but about healing together. If both can anchor themselves in mindfulness, if they can sit down with true understanding, then that relationship can become a path of transformation. There are couples who, after years of constant conflict, suddenly grow closer. Once they stop trying to change each other and start the journey of looking within themselves. The Buddha taught, your greatest enemy is not another person, but the ignorance within your own mind. And when both partners begin to recognize that ignorance, they stop being victims of each other and start walking together as companions on a spiritual path. Of course, if one person still clings to greed, anger, or delusion, then the relationship can become a deeply painful lesson. And in those cases, letting go is not failure. It's compassion. Compassion for yourself and compassion for the other person. so you don't keep hurting each other. Because not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some only need to last long enough to wake us up. So if you're in a relationship where the same painful patterns keep repeating, pause. Not to blame, but to ask, what lesson is this trying to teach me? Have I caused this pain to someone else before? Is there a chance for us to transform not by expecting them to change, but by changing how I see and respond? Because once a karmic lesson is fully learned, life opens up a brand new chapter, one that feels lighter, wider, and so much more free. 6. Love isn't something you find, it's something you become. There are so many people who, after being hurt, still quietly wish for something so simple. I just want to find someone who truly loves me, understands me, and walks peacefully by my side for the rest of my life. It sounds like a simple wish, but behind that wish is often a long, winding journey filled with trial and error, with hopes that turned into disappointments, with moments when you thought you'd finally found it, only to lose it again. And so, people start to ask, how do I find the right person? Why do I keep attracting relationships that hurt me? Am I just unlucky? Or maybe I'm not worthy of being loved? But Buddhist wisdom offers a different lens, one that's deeper and somehow more hopeful. True love doesn't come from finding the right person. It comes from becoming the right person. You know, people talk a lot these days about the law of attraction. But in Buddhism, it's not a trick to manifest someone else. It's a process of transforming yourself from within. Because every relationship we attract on the outside is a reflection of the relationship we have with ourselves. When your heart is still carrying wounds that haven't been healed, when you're still craving someone to come and fill the emptiness inside, it's so easy to fall into distorted, painful relationships. Someone who fears abandonment often meets someone who doesn't know how to stay. Someone who doubts their worth will attract people who don't value them. So if you want to meet someone kind, you can't just wish for it. You have to begin by living kindly with yourself. A man once shared during a Dharma talk in Boston, "I've been through 2 failed marriages. At first, I thought the problem was them. But when I started practicing meditation and turned inward, I realized I'd never loved myself kindly enough to know how to truly love someone else." That's a powerful awakening, because many of us go looking for love, as if it's a missing puzzle piece we need to find out there. But as the Buddha taught, no one can save you but yourself. No one can love you more deeply than you love yourself. And when that shift happens, when you start treating yourself with compassion, gratitude, and gentleness, that energy begins to change everything. Think of a garden. You can stand there and hope for flowers all you want. But if you don't plant seeds, water them, clear out the weeds, nothing's going to bloom. Love is the same. If you want love that's real and lasting, you have to be the one to cultivate it first. And it starts with small, everyday things. Being grateful just to wake up in the morning. Forgiving yourself when you mess up. Not gossiping, not comparing, not holding grudges. Being kind to strangers and to the softer parts of yourself. When you live that way, those little choices become spiritual blessings. And love will come not as something you chase, but as something that arrives naturally, like spring after a long winter. Mahatma Gandhi is a beautiful example of that. He didn't go out searching for a soulmate. He simply lived his truth, nonviolence, love, service. And those who walked with him, those who admired and followed him, they were people who shared that same energy, that same way of being. Love doesn't always need to be chased or named. It arrives when your heart is open enough, your mind is clear enough, and your life is honest enough to welcome it in. A woman once said, "I used to attract people who hurt me because I was still hurting. Now I've learned to love myself, to set boundaries, and to forgive the past. And then I stopped needing to search. The right one came quietly, like the first breeze of autumn. Not dramatic, not forced, just natural. Because when your inner energy shifts, your outer world follows. So if you're longing for a healthy, loving relationship right now, start here. With the way you speak to yourself inside your mind. With the way you treat others, even when there's nothing in it for you. With the courage to forgive your past so you don't carry old ghosts into new love. True love doesn't come from finding someone no matter what. It comes from becoming the kind of person that true love is drawn to. 7. Your life partner, not a coincidence. Have you ever asked yourself, out of the millions of people in this world, why was it that one person who entered your life, not the friendly barista you chatted with yesterday, not that sweet coworker you used to like, but someone who, maybe, is very different from you, maybe even difficult, and yet they're tied to your life with a thread you can't quite explain. Some people call it fate or destiny, but through the lens of Buddhism, it goes deeper than that. It's karma, it's merit, it's a soul connection carried over from previous lives. During an afternoon meditation retreat in the mountains of Northern California, an older man once asked, I used to think my marriage was a mistake, but now learning about karma, I'm starting to wonder, did we come together to love each other or to repay a spiritual debt? That question doesn't have a simple answer, because every deep relationship, especially marriage, often carries an untold story from the past. The Buddha taught, no encounter is meaningless. Those who cross your path, that's fate. But those who stay and transform your life, that's karma. And marriage isn't just about love. It's the continuation of a karmic connection that may have started many lifetimes ago. Maybe, in some past life, the two of you loved each other deeply but couldn't be together. Maybe one of you promised to care for the other but left too soon. Maybe you were parent and child, teacher and student, or even enemies, and something remained unfinished. So when you meet again in this lifetime, your deeper consciousness recognizes them even when your mind can't explain it. That strange sense of familiarity, that deep bond, despite all the storms. It's not a romantic illusion, it's karma resurfacing. One woman once shared, I can't explain why I chose my husband. We don't really get along, but I can't leave either. Something inside me feels like I'm supposed to help him heal from something, even if I can't name what it is. It sounded simple when she said it, but that's the voice of someone walking a deep spiritual path. Not all marriages are here to make us happy. Some arrive to teach us how to love in wiser, more compassionate, and more awakened ways. Sometimes, your life partner isn't your missing half. They're a karmic mirror reflecting the parts of yourself that are still unhealed, still growing. If in a past life you were careless this life, you might meet someone distant. If you once abandoned someone this life, you might feel abandoned. Not to punish you, but to help you feel awaken and not repeat the same mistake. And sometimes, your relationship is the fruit of merit. When two people have helped each other, loved each other, created good karma together, they meet again to continue that bond, to walk farther on the path of understanding. It's the kind of love that's calm, a kind of understanding that needs no explanation, a companionship that doesn't need constant effort. That's not luck. That's the harvest of seeds sown with truth and heart in lifetimes before. When you look back at life, you'll see. Some people only stay for a few months, but leave a deep mark. Some stay for decades and bring pain you never expected. And some, just one meeting, softens your heart in ways you can't explain. None of that is random. These are threads in the tapestry of karma and merit that we carry with us, life after life. Buddhism doesn't teach us to fear karma. It teaches us to recognize it so we don't keep creating more suffering. It reminds us to nurture merit so the next relationship is lighter, more peaceful than the one before. So, if you're in a challenging marriage today, maybe sit quietly and ask yourself, what are we here to learn from each other? Is there something that needs healing instead of just changing the other person? And if you're in a beautiful, peaceful relationship, cherish it deeply. Because it's not just love from this life. It's the blooming of a spiritual journey that began long before. In the end, marriage isn't the destination. It's part of the path. A path where two people are invited to let go of ego together, to transform fear together, and to learn how to love without possessing. When that happens, your life partner is no longer just the one you live with. They become the one who walks the path of awakening beside you. 8. To love again, you have to learn to let go gently. Anyone who's been through a breakup knows this well. Heartbreak doesn't end the moment two people stop being together. It lingers. In the mind, in the heart, like a quiet scratch that echoes through long nights, in a familiar song, a faded promise, or a pair of eyes you once loved. Some people move on in months. Some take years. And some carry that wound for a lifetime, even while standing next to someone new. And that's exactly why, even when you're in a new relationship, your heart might still feel shut. You say, "I'm fine," or "I've moved on," but deep down, certain memories remain unresolved. And an unhealed heart, it's hard for that heart to truly love again. In Buddhism, there's a powerful teaching, letting go. But here's the thing, letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending nothing ever happened. It means transforming that memory into a lesson, not a chain. Because holding on to anger, it doesn't punish anyone but yourself. Holding on to doubt, it doesn't protect you. It just closes your heart. And holding on to regret, it doesn't fix the past. It just dulls your present. I remember a woman once said, "It's been 5 years since my divorce, but every time I start something new, I look at that person through old eyes, guarded, suspicious, ready to run at the first sign of pain." And that's understandable. If you've ever been betrayed, abandoned, or trusted the wrong person, opening up again isn't easy. But if you don't open, love has no space to walk in. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else, but you are the one who gets burned." That's why forgiveness is the first step in healing. Not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Not to carry old images into your future. Not to let what happened dictate what could still become. There was an older retreatant in Colorado who said, "I held on to my resentment for over 10 years until I realized I've been locking away my own life behind a door that's already closed." So she began letting go little by little. No rush. No pressure. Each day, she wrote a single sentence. "I give that memory permission to leave." You can't release pain overnight. But every time you choose forgiveness, your heart opens just a little more. Every time you look back with gratitude instead of bitterness, that old memory starts to heal. And one day, when someone new arrives, you don't see them through old wounds, but with a heart that has grown. You no longer seek someone to make up for the past. You no longer love in order to be loved. You simply open because you know you're worthy of love, and you've learned how to love in a better way. Someone once asked during a Dharma talk in Oregon, "If I'm still afraid of getting hurt, should I even open myself to love again?" And the answer was, "The fact that you're aware of your fear means you're already ready." When you can see your fear clearly, without letting it control you, that's your new beginning. No one walks into new love without trembling. But as long as your heart is mindful, grounded, aware of its own boundaries, and guided by intuition, your next relationship won't be a repeat of the old one, because you are no longer the old version of yourself. And the way you love will also be different. Just remember this: no one can enter your heart if you haven't entered it first. No one can love you deeply if you're still carrying unresolved stories from before. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means making space for something new to grow. Just like clearing a winter garden to make room for spring, gentle, light-filled, full of life. And now, after all we've explored, from karma and spiritual debt, to wounds and healing, to opening the heart again, maybe you're starting to see marriage isn't just about two people. It's part of a spiritual journey for the soul. Your partner, whether they brought you joy or pain, played a sacred role in your awakening. Some come to love us. Some come to teach us how to let go. Some come to help us learn a lesson we couldn't learn alone. And if your heart is now brave enough to forgive the past, quiet enough to look within, and open enough to love again, then real love awakened, compassionate love is no longer far away. It becomes the natural fruit of everything you've lived, everything you've learned, and everything you've transformed. And if something in today's video touched you, a memory, a feeling, or a soft awakening inside, then let's keep walking this path together with mindfulness, compassion, and daily practice. If you found this meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to Buddhism Seeds. Hit the like button and share this with someone who's also on the journey of healing through love and marriage. And please leave a comment below. What spoke to you today? What are you ready to release or embrace? Thank you for being here, truly being here. See you in the next video, where the Dharma continues to light up the quiet corners of life and gently guides us back to a peaceful heart